Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Mindshifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeannie. Michael and Jeannie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rahma. Michael is the author of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce.
And the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, and welcome to Mindshifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. Today is Memorial Day Celebration 123. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. We would love to hear from you. Give us a call with your questions or your comments. Michael, are you there?
I certainly am. Yes, dear. I got caught in doing some projects here and running a little bit late. My error. Anyway, welcome to our Memorial Day invitation once again to pick something in your life today that you've got some hostility or fear about and be willing to forgive, to let loose of that hostility and fear. Our intention and our goal there is to create support for hostility and fear to disappear from planet Earth, which, of course, would mean that we'd be disappearing in war. And those who've been murdered and forced to murder and suffered the most insane atrocities for humans to be committing would be over. So let's support that completion. What is it today that you're willing to look at, that you're willing to own, that holds you hostage to some form of hostility or fear? And know that if you're feeling hostility or fear, it's because it's something inside of you. It's not caused outside of you, though something outside of you can certainly trigger it. And the whole forgiveness process is about going inside yourself and changing that internal dynamic. So if you're not familiar with that whole process, we invite you to go to our website, and you can download the book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, free, the whole book. But you can also download Chapter 24, which gives you instructions for the forgiveness process, as well as the worksheet itself and a couple of sample radio shows where we walk somebody through the forgiveness process. It's inspiring to listen to somebody really moving through some major issues and seeing just how the process works. So to find the links for those 4 items, you go to www.whyagain.com. Right-hand side, about the 6th link down, is download worksheets. First 4 links will give you the whole story on how to forgive. So, Judy, do we have any callers or anything happening in the chat room to be aware of?
We have David and Tim on the line. We've got some other people that are just out there listening. Nobody has their hand up. Anybody that is on the phone, if you want to speak, press 1, and it raises a little hand, lets me know, and I can put you in queue to talk to Michael. And there's only one person out in the chat room right now. I don't know if because we were a little late getting on, if they thought maybe we weren't coming out here today or what, but so maybe we'll hold the space that they'll show up here in a little bit.
Awesome. Well, David, how are you this morning? Or this afternoon, pardon me?
Very well, Michael. Doing very well. As you and I talked this morning, once again, just holding the space. There's fabulous things that are going on here in Louisville with support of a lot of different people in the healing process that we are going through. It's just really, really nice that everyone's level of kindness and thoughtfulness that they are holding. So I'm doing well. Thank you.
Cool. Anything in particular to share with us about the work that you're doing with folks there?
Well, I've
or
just spent
or
most of the morning.
context of, I say, or yourself in the context of everything that's happening.
Yeah, I've met with one of my son's best friends this morning, late this morning and this early afternoon, and I just left there. I'm headed over to my son's place of business to visit with his staff over there for a little bit. And what the community is really just being receptive to support and to keep things going in the form of healing. They're doing some fundraisers. They're offering all kinds of support from everyone. I just got connected and understand a little bit more about Facebook, and so I'll be contacting and communicating a lot of the different things that are going on here in the community about that. So it's just opening up to a new space. As you and I talked this morning, how am I doing? And it really is a matter of each moment, sometimes each breath, about staying connected with my true essence. And it's been challenging, and I've answered the challenge with it. And I know that there's more on the way, and I feel really good at this moment about the level of support that I am receiving from lots of different people around. So I'm doing well.
Awesome. Well, that's fabulous, David, and we extend our hearts and our support for you and for your whole family there in Louisville, and we just surround you in light and love. Dr. Tim, how are you today?
Doing very well. I'm very glad to hear that David's doing well and his voice sounds good. We're staying quite busy here, having lots of productive sessions with people using these tools and having people doing releases that are leading to new insights and new healing, and just glad to be on the team. I was having some thoughts about the perception article that you shared with me about from the CIA site, and
yes,
just kind of getting my own little flashes of how many times in the past few weeks, it's really been a major theme in my sessions. My friend Christy had a ride in the car with me a few weeks ago, and beautiful sunny day, middle of the afternoon, no clouds in the sky, and she said, "Oh, look, it's a hang glider." And I looked where she was pointing, and all I could see was a commercial jet. And I said, "Where?" And she said, "Right over there, it's red." And this commercial jet had a red belly and a gold tail. Now, it wasn't one of the largest commercial jets, but from my perception, it was clearly a commercial jet. And I said, "Well, all I see is a commercial jet." And she said, "No, it's a hang glider." Well, I had to keep my hands on the wheel and my eyes pointed forward, so I didn't look at it too much. But as we kept going, it was coming in our direction. She ended up leaning closer to me and looking out the back window and straining until finally she said, "Oh, my gosh, it's a jet." And she just kept talking about it because she said, "I can't even begin to tell you. It's not like I thought I saw a hang glider." She says, "I saw a hang glider. It's not like a shape somewhat like a hang glider. There was a hang glider there. It was red. I could see the person hanging from it. I could see the wings." And all of this was coming back to me as I was reading the article, that the CIA has known for quite a while that our perception is not anything like objective. It is completely subjective, and our mind creates pictures for us based on what we expect to see. And in that article, there are several little images. Did you read the articles and click on the images?
Yes.
And I was straining to see what was there. And then I'd go look at the explanation, and I just shook my head and said, "No, that wasn't there," and clicked back, and sure enough, the picture says there it is. So It's at the root of how we create all of our pain and suffering, and the more we can help people understand that and give them tools to correct it, the better off we'll all be.
Absolutely. It was interesting. I just happened to be Googling something for an article that I'm writing, and this CIA website came up. Let me just share a paragraph or two from it. People tend to think of perception as a passive process. We see, hear, smell, taste, and feel stimuli that impinge on our senses. We think that if we are at all objective, we record what actually is there. Yet perception is demonstrably an active rather than a passive process. It constructs rather than records reality. Perception implies understanding as well as awareness. And, when you recognize the ramifications of that, we have an example that you shared with us yesterday on the show about the woman in the support group who did a worksheet around her sister kind of dissing her, which was a construct in her mind. And when she collapsed that, which is what's so important about the forgiveness process, she was able to go back and see that her hurt and her pain was about what had happened when she was very young with both her mother and her father, two different events. Full images came to mind. And there's a word for that in Aramaic, interestingly enough. It's not just the CIA that's understood this or modern so-called science, but go back 2,000 years, and in the Aramaic they had a word that indicated that something from the unconscious was impacting perception and behavior, both aspects of it. And when you add this suffix uta to a word, it indicates that something unconscious is controlling perception and is showing us images that aren't true, that literally are hallucinations. And we recognize, as she does that her hostility and fear is the indicator that she's in an hallucination. Literally, hostility or fear is just an indicator within each of us that our mind is taking something from our past and projecting it into a present moment experience, and we're losing our ability to live as human beings, as the active presence of love. And this article in from CIA website is just awesome in the way that it presents that idea, and the whole idea as looking at how mindsets operate. When we recognize that a mindset is simply a foundation for the mind projecting or creating an image that simply isn't there. And when we look at someone in our hostility and our fear, we're looking at something that simply isn't there. There's interesting information if you go on and look at this whole article, how it speaks of the fact that if there's a fuzzy image, and it kind of fits with what you were just saying about what happened with Christy that day, if there's a fuzzy image that they show to people, and as they make that image clearer and clearer and clearer, the person who perceives it as a certain something, and then as the image gets clearer and clearer, it is absolutely not that certain something, that person has difficulty shifting their brain into what's actually clearly there before them. For instance, something, just to use an example, maybe there's this fuzzy image of what looks like a box. And so somebody goes, oh, I see it, there's a box there. Just as Christy did with the hang glider. Oh, there's a box, and then as the picture gets clearer and clearer and clearer, it's a suitcase. It's clear that it's a suitcase. I mean, it's a perfectly clear picture of a suitcase. But the person who started out with this as box doesn't change their minds. And this is such a key and important part in our relationships. If I have a parent who has done some sort of hostility, fear-based behavior, or at least I responded to it in that way, and here I am 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years later, somebody resonates those brain cells. I'm not looking at the person that I think I'm looking at. I've constructed a reality out of those ancient pained brain cells and hallucinating. And as you forgive, what happens is that you get to clean up those things. So it's pretty awesome that here's the CIA now sharing with us Yeshua's teachings from 2,000 years ago, and that making it clear that we have a commitment to seeing something a certain way, and we're going to see it that way. And when we start gathering, it's so important to be aware of the speech that the people around you use, because speech has a whole lot to do with what brain cells fire and how we perceive the world. So when we're around people who support us in negative perceptions about certain people or situations, support us in negative ways of thinking or seeing, or certain behaviors that don't really serve us, the tendency can be to make a commitment to that particular cognition, that particular image, or that particular behavior. And it's awesome the way they point out in this particular article that that's most difficult to change once you made a commitment to that. And so if you go back into, and one of the things they talk about is mindsets, and they go on to say, patterns of expectations tell analysts subconsciously what to look for, what is important, and how to interpret what is seen. These patterns form a mindset that predisposes analysts to think in certain ways. A mindset is akin to a screen or lens through which one perceives the world. And when you recognize that, if you go back to the ancient Aramaic language and you hear the man Yeshua saying, love your neighbor, and of course your neighbor is anybody that you think about in Aramaic. It doesn't mean the guy down the block. Your neighbor is yourself. Your neighbor is your child. Your neighbor is your spouse. Your neighbor is your parent. And the word he uses in Aramaic is the word tuv, and he's speaking about an attitude of mind or a mindset, exactly what the CIA is talking about here, as being a screen or a lens through which we perceive. And this man Yeshua was saying, if you want to live a sane human life, you've got to keep this mindset called love active in you. It hasn't got to do with how you behave toward your neighbor or your behavior toward your neighbor at all, as the Greeks would tell us. When the teachings were Hellenized, the whole idea of this being a mindset was lost, and it became, you go ahead and, if your neighbor wants to punch you in the nose, go ahead and let him, and just, turn the other cheek and just let it happen, or, self-sacrifice, all kinds of crazy definitions for love. But what Yeshua was talking about is this mindset that keeps us sane, that keeps us with on-track perception. And it's such a huge piece of learning to get that. When
Michael,
we let go of yes, sweetie.
do you have the website that you can give for there's people in the chat room or whatever, or the people on the phone, where they can look up this article you're referencing?
I don't have it in front of me, but they could Google perception : or Tim, do you happen to have it there in front of you? Just Google perception : space, why can't we see what is there to be seen? And it will come up. I think that's how Tim found it after we talked this morning.
Okay.
There's actually a whole book there you can download. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Okay. And we have Richard on the phone.
Oh, hey, Richard, welcome.
How you doing?
I am blessed, sir. How are you?
Blessed. So I jumped in on this conversation because I pulled a little joke on a friend of mine a couple of years ago. She had just opened a new dance space, and I was there dancing, and off to the side of the dance floor was this leaf, and from a distance it looked like a dead mouse. So she came out, and I was dancing with her, and I said, "Hey, Pam, you got a dead mouse over there on the floor." And she immediately saw it as a dead mouse and went over and didn't realize it was just a leaf until she was ready to pick it up. But it's the point you're trying to make is we see what we believe is there, you know. I thought it was a joke if I pulled on this person through misperception. I just wanted to point out that, yes, that is very true. We tend to believe what we see or think we see.
Well, and actually we can turn that the other way. We tend to see what we believe.
Yes, that's the whole thing about science too. Is most scientists are there just trying to prove what they believe. So they're gathering the facts to prove what they believe.
Yeah, there's a fellow who wrote a book, The Nature of Scientific Revolution, and his take as I don't remember his credentials offhand, but Harvard, Princeton, double cum laude, just on and on go his credentials as a scientist. And he says that science is set up to prevent innovation and new things happening. In essence, to protect the status quo, to protect whatever happens to be the current moneymaker in the culture. And it's oftentimes when we live in a mindset of things like, I need to protect myself, we will see all kinds of things that we need to protect ourselves from. If we live in a mindset of, I'm right, you're wrong, it's settled, why argue, then we'll always see somebody to argue with. We'll always create the circumstances that justify that particular mindset. And the man named Yeshua 2,000 years ago says, here's a mindset you want to have. You want to have a mindset called love. When you do, your whole life is going to change, your whole perception, your whole world, your relationships, the way you interact with your spouse, it's all going to change. But and if you think about, just a real simple example you can use, take someone that you say, oh, I love you, I cherish you, I honor you, I'm right here for you, and then they give you the look and up comes your anger. Do you see what you love about them anymore? Disappears. It becomes, don't touch me, don't come near me, I never want to see you again. That's the damaging effect of hostility and fear. And we make commitments. When we make a commitment to that particular cognitive reality, have to change. That's one of the things this article's about. It's like once we've made a commitment, once we're moving in that direction, so to consistently on a daily basis apply the tool of forgiveness becomes such an important piece of the puzzle, because we all came in with certain commitments to seeing the world a certain way. We came in with a genetic predisposition, and then we ran into parents who played all sorts of games based in hostility and fear. We ran into school teachers and preachers and neighbors and friends and enemies who played all kinds of crazy games out of hostility and fear. And if we're committed to protecting ourselves against those things instead of forgiving those things in ourselves, then we'll keep creating all that it takes to keep the insanity going. So we're definitely here to support that shift, because you know what? At the root of all war is exactly this insanity that we're talking about. There's actually a really awesome and powerful movie, specifically speaking in this regard, called 13 Days. And it's a story of the Russian missile crisis in Cuba. And it shows why we have to be careful who we turn the decision-making process over to, because the military were ready to go start dropping bombs, like right there on the spot. And the Kennedys, and it's a pretty powerful film and apparently very fact-based, Kennedys, living in a different world than that hostility and fear, were committed to doing something different. If they had succumbed to the advisors whose mindset was a mindset of fear,
nuclear bomb probably would have been used in that whole circumstance, in that situation. And they stayed away. They stayed away from the hostility and fear. Now, if you look at some of our more recent war makers, you listen to their conversation, and their conversations are pretty hostility and fear-based. And so here we find ourselves now in perpetual war against, of course, an invisible enemy, and nobody will ever be able to define when this war will be over because we don't have a definable enemy to defeat. Isn't this an awesome, ideal situation to turn billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars over into the hands of the people who make the war machine go?
Yeah, and
humans to wake up.
Yeah, I know. I mean, there was certainly and I'll just say that whenever that administration took over, there was a lot of people saying, "Uh-oh, the crazies have taken over," and feared the worst of the war. It's interesting because I was at a conference or at a talk last night presented by who's now the director of the Lawrence Berkeley Labs, and who's been working on talking about what he calls carbon cycle 2, and basically the idea that the physics behind the carbon production and utilization and inputs into the air, which is driving the thermal increase in temperature on Earth.
Right.
And, definitely he was putting the physics behind it and talking about, this is the physics. This is what's going on. And people were definitely wanting to hide their heads in the sand and not accept it. And I went up to him after the conference and made a statement to him, and I said, somebody had asked the questions, well, what's going to happen? How are we going to deal with this? How can this be dealt with politically and all that stuff? And, of course, his answer was, well, I don't know. We could have some sort of carbon tax or whatever. But afterwards I went up to him and I said to him, I said, this whole thing of production of carbon and putting it into our atmosphere and not recognizing the reality of the situation of what's happening is exactly like the Romans who built their aqueducts out of lead and basically destroyed themselves because of that. We're in the same situation today because we're not owning up to the fact that all this burning of fossil fuel is creating a rise in the temperature of the Earth overall. But anyway, regardless of that, it was interesting because there was a little party afterwards, and there was this woman and her husband there talking to him, and I heard her make the comment of, well, how are we going to deal with this with the Chinese? It was basically who's going to create the thing in order to stop this happening. And she says, well, we don't want the Chinese to get it because her fear was of the Chinese being able to figure it out and do something about it before we do. But she definitely brought up the whole game.
Yeah, the whole game has definitely got to shift if we're actually going to survive as human beings and if human life is going to show back up on the Earth. When you hold a newborn child, you know exactly what human life is, and we live in a culture that seems to do its best to make sure that the world is devoid of human life. And so our work, should we choose to do it, is to remove everything that's unlike human life, every hostility, every fear, every grief, every pain, every trauma, and wake up and get back to who we are. And as we do that, everything starts to shift and change.
And
so, Richard, thank you for your call. I appreciate it.
And I want to say thank you for this work, and thank you for keeping it alive and teaching it.
Well, we're devoted to an eternal process, or at least until we get to the point where the game of insanity, of hostility and fear is over on planet Earth. So that's what we're here committed to. We're going to continue, Richard, and we appreciate you being on the support team and assisting and taking it farther and farther afield every day. So hope your day is blessed, and we'll look forward to seeing you next summer when you get here for teacher training.
Thank you.
All right, blessings. Do we have any other callers and questions in the chat room, comments?
No. Everybody's just out there listening. Nobody's raising their hand or asking any questions. So.
Dr. Tim, you got any more thoughts for us?
We actually had a hand just go up, too.
Oh, go ahead. Take the hand up.
Okay. Well, let's let Tim say what he's got in his mind, and then we'll go for the hand.
I was just going to echo that the piece that fits for me is that if you just pick up the tool and get started, you'll start to see little changes, and it builds in momentum. And I'm noticing, and I have noticed over the past 6 months, more and more instances of catching myself in my misperception. So as I cultivate the desire to see what's actually in front of me and to see how I might be wrong, it gets easier and easier to do. So that's my only addition there.
Awesome. Okay. Well, area code 804. You are on the air.
Hello, 804. Welcome. Can you hold for just 1 second? I just want to throw one thought on top of Tim's thought there, and that is that most human beings don't realize it, but they live in blockage of truth. I want to be right about what's going on in my mind, and when I'm right about what's going on in my mind, then I get to make you wrong, and that's a place where a lot of humans live. And the antidote for that one that I hear you talking about, Tim, that you're using in your own life is love of truth. That when I love truth, I antidote this blockage of truth, and that's such an important key to seeing truly and to getting out of the hallucinations of a hostility and fear-based mind. Thank you, Dr. Tim. And 804, welcome. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Edward from Las Vegas calling. I'm the president of the International Fan Club for Michael Ryce.
Hey, Edward, how are you? I'm glad to hear your voice. You're feeling better?
I certainly am. And thanks to you, Michael. I've never divulged this to you because I was kind of embarrassed. But I have been unhappy at work for a year, and I was trying to change my perception of what was going on through getting in touch with my own hostility and anger and fear. And as I continually do the worksheets, what I found out was it was okay for me to be disappointed about what my requirements were to make me happy at work. But I didn't have to overreact with my own internal processing of being miserable and judging everything as being wrong. And so over the last almost a year since I've known you, I've been doing the worksheets and doing the worksheets on my manager. And what finally came out was, in terms of resolution, the paradigm shifted, and I said to myself, I'm going to bring about arbitration. And because I empowered myself and said, I am absolutely smart enough to go into arbitration and do it with clarity and a new perception. And I don't have to blame myself for feeling guilty, inferior, and going to get fired. So on Monday, would you believe it, I picked up the phone and in a very loving way said to the manager, I said, I would like to run this by you and see whether there's clarity in where I'm coming from. Is it appropriate? Is it the protocol in our organization? Can I recommend or suggest mediation? I do have a concern, and I would like to present it to you, and I'm certainly open to whatever the results are. He said, well, we've never done this before. I wouldn't even know how to do it. I would have to call New York and find out what the procedures are. But we will certainly honor your request, and I'll get back to you. So he got back to me on Tuesday morning, and he said, it's absolutely fine. And how about let's do it on Wednesday? And so I showed up, and I decided to talk in the eyes of Michael Ryce. I kept asking myself, how would Michael talk? And the first, so what came out of that would be that you would talk in a detached way, you would state your case, and you would not come from hostility or fear, but you would already be practicing true forgiveness, even before whatever you perceived was going to happen. You were going to be in the present moment of some kind of an unconditional love for whatever happened. So I just kind of used you as my mentor, and the mediation went extremely well, and the concern that I was very upset about, it was just easy as pie. The manager said, that's fine, Edward. Why didn't you come to us way long ago? And he said, I had no idea this was going on. And absolutely, he said, we can make all those changes for you. And is there anything else you need? And I said, no, sir. And so the person who I was really upset with, she was very non-threatening. And I said to her, it's not about winning or trying to put either of you down. It's about bringing this to resolution so we can work for the bigger picture, and that is for our employee. We're here to work as a sales team and to be productive, and we can't do that if we have suppressed and very hidden issues going on in our own communication. So now we can support each other and come together in love. And she hugged me. My adversary hugged me. And so the manager shook my hands, and I thought, gosh, I thanked him, and I walked out, and I thought, I just looked up at the sky, and I know I'm supposed to say, thank you, dear God, but I said, thank you, dear Michael Ryce. You're my mentor.
So a question then that is relevant is, in that year that you didn't step forward and bring up the issues that were involved, who were you really afraid of? Where did your worksheets, take you, and what was the fear really about?
Well, Michael, my fear was always, I was writing to my father because I was, as a little child, told that children should be seen and not heard. And so I have always interacted with men in shutting down. Number two, telling myself there's something wrong with me, that I'm not to be heard. Nobody is interested in hearing what I have to say. So what I accomplished yesterday from all these worksheets on my father was that my father's voice needed to be canceled. I needed to stop listening to something that was not real. My voice of my father is from the past, and it's had me in bondage. But yesterday I felt a sense of freedom that came about by being authentic and expressing my truth, Michael. And so actually what I did was resolve my relationship with my father yesterday.
Awesome. And if we took it just one step further, because it's such a powerful example, Edward, if we took it one step forward, further, before you went into this space of connectedness and love, whose voice would you have used in bringing this up in the context of your business?
I would have still brought up my father's voice. Brought up his judgmental.
So not only, well, there's the point that I'm really wanting to make is, so not only were you afraid to bring this issue up because of your father's voice in your head, the reality still going on, but if you had brought it up, you'd have been using that same brutal voice you were afraid of in order to bring the issue up. And there's that whole issue that we were talking about a little earlier in the show of ridding ourselves of the mindset of hostility and fear, and being willing to rid ourselves of that voice that not only are we terrified of, but that we tend to use when the stress is up and the chips are down. It's
Yes.
so bizarre, isn't it?
Yes, and the thing about it is that it feels like it makes me feel like, well, I've got right in this whole thing, because I think what the bottom line is, I'm afraid of my father's anger. I'm afraid of my own anger. I'm afraid that anger will get me into trouble, even if I express it in a passive way. The paradigm doesn't shift, because either or, whether I'm expressing it or suppressing it, it's still a suppressed feeling of my father inside my inner voice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's an awesome piece of work, and it's interesting how many people don't even realize the thing that run their business relationships, the thing that run their spousal relationships is the voice of father and the voice of mother. And because when we're doing that which we hated that our power person did to us, and this is the whole bottom line in the codependence workshop, when we do what we hated the most, when the stress is up and the chips are down, that our power person did to us, what's happening is we're functioning out of exactly what we saw them do. And when we look at someone else through the eyes of hostility and fear, we're not seeing them. We're seeing dear old dad and his issues, or dear mom and her issues, or whoever our power person was. And the importance of that cognitive commitment to truth is just so awesomely important. And in Aramaic, that mindset, it's actually a filter in the Aramaic language that was taught 2,000 years ago. The filter was called Rachma. When we hear Yeshua saying you must love God, neighbor, and self, it's got nothing to do with what you're doing toward God, neighbor, or self. What he's saying is you need to keep this filter active, folks, if you want to live a human life and you want to produce the kind of results that you just talked about producing. That's just awesome, sir. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. And now I have in the back of my new inner voice is from the Course. I'm never upset for the reason I think I am.
Oh, that's a big one, isn't it?
Yes, and that gets me to the core issue of where does that kind of a reaction come from. Incidentally, last night we had the pleasure of having Connie back in town, and she is so insightful and moved me towards even further clarity on this situation, and we're just very fortunate to have her here as your disciple, Michael.
Cool. Well, she was here for intuitive development and certainly made some giant leaps in opening that intuitive faculty, and that's exactly where that level of guidance comes from. So that's one of the fun intensives that we do each summer in our summer programs at Heartland. So,
well, next summer you will see me at Heartland, and I'm looking forward to being a part of your groups, and thanks again for just being such a wonderful mentor and bringing back this major change in my life.
Absolutely delighted to be on the team. By the way, that issue, that voice that you've been afraid of Dad, and the voice of Dad's that you've been using when the stress is up and the chips are down. Let me see. You're now, 42, so that's been happening for almost 40 years or so? Is that right?
Sir. Yes, sir. Almost as long as the Titanic has been down, sir.
You're not going to own up to what that is exactly, eh?
No, sir, but I thank you very much. You've made a major, it caused me to have a fabulous paradigm shift in my life, sir.
Awesome. Well, I'm just delighted to be supporting Edward, and I certainly appreciate it. I actually were on my list to call because Connie brought us a little tithe check that you'd given her. Actually, a significant tithe check that you'd given her, and you were on my list to call to say thank you for supporting us, supporting you, because that's what makes it possible.
My support is always with you and Jeannie, and be well. Know that I love you.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care. Blessings.
Be well. Bye-bye now, sir.
What fun. By the way, anybody that's on the show, if you do want to support us, you can go to our website. There's a button on www.why over on the right-hand side that says donate. And, one of the things that keeps this radio show going, one of the things that keeps us on the road 6 to 10 months of the year, keeps our website going, keeps our, all the things that are free on the website, By the way, another person who was at teachers training this summer and who was at the intuitive development workshop is a young lady named Marie Jose from Sarasota, Florida. And you're going to see a really cool shift in our website. Jeannie has set up just this awesome happening website with all of these pages and all this going on. And Marie has a professional designer that works for her who designs websites. And she has volunteered to step in and to have her programmer give it a whole new look, taking and changing all the pages into awesome new, look. So keep your eye out for that. That's going to be pretty cool when it happens. There's going to be some awesome graphics on the site, some new colors and all those sorts of things, and then all the awesome content what Jeannie's put together. 6-7 years ago, Jeannie hadn't ever touched a website, and she stepped up to the plate and said, "Okay, I'll do that," and started. And you go to the website. That's all Jeannie's work, and it's so awesome what you've done for you. It's just fabulous, and the amount of support that it gives to people is fabulous. And so our hats are off to you, and gracias, and Marie, gracias for being willing to bring in a designer that's going to give us a facelift on what Jeannie's creating. Pretty cool. It's fabulous. So do we have any callers or any questions or comments in the chat room?
No, nobody else has their hand up. If you're on the switchboard here and you want to talk, please press 1. We're down to about 9.5 minutes. And we got a few people. Nene's in the chat room. She says hi to everybody.
Yeah, I was just talking to Nene. By the way, we can put out a few of the things that we're going to be doing. We just scheduled today, the week of the 5th of November. We're going to be in Pompano Beach, Florida, doing a week of workshops. And Nene is going to be starting a support group there. So we're going to get just a whole ton of energy moving to support Nene in building her support groups in South Florida.
That's in December.
With people. December. Pardon me, yes, December 5th. Right, yeah. Yeah, we've actually still got a week available in early November to do something in Miami, somewhere between Miami and Boca Raton. If anybody has an idea for us, a venue that's significant size that we can take the tools to. One of our goals, there are now 2 certified teachers down in the South Florida area, Nene and Deu. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend a lot of concentrated time in that area building the energy for the work so that Nene and Deu have support groups galore that they can do and people that are going to support them in taking the work forward to the next level. And Nene is doing work both in Spanish and in English, and so if anybody's down in that area that wants to get some support with doing worksheets personally, Nene is available. You can just drop Jeannie a note and or Nene, if you want to give us a way to contact that you can put in the chat room, and or if you feel comfortable, we can give it out over the air. That would be awesome too, because we want to see this grow. I know that you're going to touch the whole South American, the whole Spanish-speaking world with forgiveness, and that's really, really awesome.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Dr. Tim, do you have any other thoughts for us today?
Well, my thought is if Julie's there, can she say hello and tell us what's been going on in her young life?
She actually Julie Haverstick was sitting here with me, but she had just stepped out of the room, so she's not here right at this minute.
Well, timing is everything in life.
I know.
Well, it's just very exciting.
Julie comes back in.
Yeah, if she comes back in, let us know. And I would just say it's just very exciting to have more people doing support groups and more people teaching the work. And I'm getting more and more energy around our group, and I know it's helping the energy in our group to know that in the town next door there's another group that started up. That group just started a bulletin board so they can have comments, and so it's an online system to try and support the members of that group between sessions. Kind of a different step than what I had done in trying to write a blog about my group. And hopefully that'll take off and be even more interactive for them. And if that works, it's a free bulletin board program. Then you can make that resource available to other Mind Shifters groups as they start up.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you get the note from Carrie about that?
I did, yes. Jeannie, did you get that note? You happen to have the link for that and the instructions? I don't have it here in front of me. I'm not at my computer. But if you happen to have that, or within the next day or two, we can put it on the website.
Your voice isn't real clear. I heard you say, "Did I get a note?" and then I didn't hear the rest of your comments.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
It's real staticky. Okay, the static just stopped. So wherever you are, be still.
Okay. Didn't move. Anyway, Carrie from the support group in Cary, Indiana, had sent an email yesterday about the bulletin board that Tim's talking about, and I was just wondering if you happen to have the instructions for that you could put on the website, and anybody could tap in and be part of that process.
This is the first I've heard about it, so I guess when I get back to the house, we can do something. But
well, I'll give you I'll put the link on the chat room for you.
Okay, great.
It's mindshifters.freeforums.org. And people have to sign up, but once they do, they can read posts and comment.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. That's a cool idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe, Tim, you could link your blog to that so that the two can be available to everybody easily and carrying things forward.
All right, I'll give it a try.
Awesome.
Very good. Thank you.
So is Julie back with us yet?
She is. Hold on just one moment. Miss Swift. I want you to say hi.
Hi, everybody.
Well, hey there, Miss Julie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. For those who don't know Julie, Julie is the author of Healing Children, Loving Children. She lives at Heartland. She's been doing work for the 25 or so years as a school teacher and supporting people. And each year at Heartland, she usually does a class with reality management worksheets. So she's affectionately known at Heartland as the Worksheet Queen. So Tim had the thought that you might have a thought or two to share with us on the things we've been speaking of. Julie?
Say that again, Michael.
I say Tim had the thought that you might have a thought or two to share with us just on what we've been talking about with the radio show so far today. So we're just inviting you to give us some input.
Oh, actually, I only heard part of the show, so I wouldn't be the best person to give you some input. But what I did hear was excellent, a great communication, and that was just the beginning part of the show. I was listening outside the hotel, and then I came in to visit with Jeanette. So that's about all the feedback.
Okay. Is there anything in particular on your mind today that you would like to share? Something that's been striking you recently, or maybe during intuitive development or such, that was important and would be cool to share with everybody?
Well, I think the intuitive development class was absolutely excellent, and I think that, I would love to see Tim and Dr. Andraki and all these people come here, all these people that talk on the radio show. I just love to see them come and be part of Heartland. It is such a wonderful experience. I've come every year, as Michael well knows, and I've always done at least one intensive every year, and it's been 25 years since I met Michael, and so I would support everybody joining in and coming out to Heartland and having fun.
Yay! Was there anything in particular that struck you, Julie, in either teacher's training or in the intuitive development this summer that you'd like to share?
Any big idea that came across in a new way or in a deeper way for you?
Well, for me, it would just be a projection on my own part of knowing myself. I think that I've made significant shifts in my intuitive development, and others gave me feedback on even how I move my head to be able to listen to the right side of the brain where the intuitive side is. And, I didn't even realize I was doing that. And so I noticed a tremendous significance in being able to be more intuitive. I noticed a tremendous difference with the worksheet and having more fun. And people actually came up to me, the different students, and said that they made they had a huge understanding after, I taught the worksheet, and that they really got it. They really understood it, and they're all pretty much jumping into it and seeing and experiencing the benefits of it.
Cool. Fabulous. Well, we're down to about 60 seconds, so I'm going to just get ready to sign off so Jeannie can push the button to do the closure show, and just invite everyone. Bring a stranger with you tomorrow. Do the forgiveness process, and you will create the best year yet of your eternal life. And thank you for being with us. Blessings.
Thank you for listening to Mind Shifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife Jeannie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeannie are here every Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeannie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.